Welcome back to Sparky Hobbies. This is a continue of how to build the best deck ever. We just kind of followed the mana curve. We've sort of talked a little bit about who's the beatdown, and we're going to continue with the beatdown now that we've kind of addressed the luck factor of beatdown. Okay, so yeah. So how do you ensure that you get to be the beatdown? Well, playing great cards is one way to ensure that you're going to be the beatdown. Getting the cards that you need is one way to ensure that you're going to be the beatdown. There's another large part of this, which is controlling and destroying your the key cards of your opponent's deck. So if you destroy his key creature, if you discard one of his key spells out of his hand, that is a tremendous way to basically control the board and make sure that you're going to win the game. And there's another property in this ensuring that you're the beatdown called card advantage. And card advantage can best be displayed by the cards that I've shown so far by this card. When he comes into play, he triggers a destroy target artifact ability. So that means that he can destroy a target, he can possibly destroy one of your opponent's key cards. But it also serves a secondary function. After it does that, or after it has the possibility of doing that, it stays on the board. It's a creature. It can fight for you. Card advantage basically means that you're going to get more use out of your cards than they are of theirs directly through basically, it really comes down to basically that you get one card. For one card that you're going to play, you're going to take care of two of his. This card, you play one card, you might destroy up to 4 of his. You've taken care of, well, let's get my fingers in there. You've taken 4 of his cards for 1 of your cards. That means you're just getting more use out of this card. And that's basically what card advantage entails. What's some other ways to ensure that your deck plays consistently? Well, a good way is to choose the very best cards from your deck and ensure that you have 4 of them. That's the max allowed, and it will basically increase the chances that you will get the cards that make your deck run. So choose the best cards and put 4 of them in your deck. The alternative to this is that if a card does not help you win, you need to take it out. This is about like weeding through and choosing what cards you do need and working on those strengths and choosing the cards that are underperforming and taking them out. Another way to make that your deck play consistently is that if you need a card, where did it go? Here it went. If you need a specific card to make your deck run, you can tutor for it. Tutoring is magic geek speak for being able to search your library, get the card you need, put it in your hand, or put it in your play. And it's named after a very famous card that first did it, which was called Demonic Tutor. Demonic Tutor reads, search your library for a card and put it into your hand. Bam. It does it. It gets you the card you need. And the reason, of course, that it's basically called Tutor is that there were other cards. This is Worldly Tutor. It's a little bit hard to read white cards with my video camera. That basically do the same thing. This goes and gets an artifact or enchantment from your library and puts it on top, so you're going to get it. The Trinket Mage would be another example of a tutor card. So that's why they're called tutor cards, and to sort of deal with some magic vocab and put that out of the way. Another way is to sort of, it's an alternative to drawing cards. So we already sort of talked a little bit about how if you draw more cards, you'll be able to play more cards, or you'll be able to get the card that you need faster. The alternative to this is rather thinning out the cards that you don't need from the deck to sort of reduce how many cards are in your way from drawing the cards that you need. And the best way to do this, of course, is to keep your deck size to the minimum of 60 cards. So just following deck construction rules and making sure that you have the minimum 60 cards, that's a good way to basically thin out your deck and make sure that only the best cards that you need to win remain and play. The other way is to thin out cards from your deck. To get certain cards from your deck and make sure that you're not going to draw them. And this is an example of a great card that does this. This is called Land Tax. And it says, during your upkeep, if your opponent controls more lands than you search your library and you remove 3 basic lands and you put them in your hand. So most people read this card initially and think, wow, I can get like land and I can put it in my hand when I need land. But the alternative thing that Land Tax does, and it does it so well, is that it removes, it thins out your land from your deck. You're not going to top deck a land when instead you need a creature. And there are all kinds of cards that do this. One of the ones that are very famous are called sacrifice lands. And we already talked a little bit about Arid Mesa, how it can color fix and get you a mountain or a plains. But another thing that it does is basically you've played a land, you tap it, you sacrifice it, and you get a land out of your library. You have one less plains or mountains in your deck. You're less likely to draw that card, and it's less likely to, mess up your late game when you need a creature or a spell instead of drawing that, that 8th land. So this comes down to very important when it comes to mana curves and everything like that. Also, that Arid Mesa. But that's another alternative way to do it, is to simply thin out your deck with cards. And that covers what I have on how to get the cards you need consistently. But is that all that you need to basically build the best deck ever? And unfortunately the answer is no. It does not stop there. For example, this deck that I've been showing you a little bit of, it's a little pet deck of mine, the Mirror Moon Vessel deck, the Moon Pebbles deck. This deck consistently wins on turn 4. It can kill somebody on turn 2. So wouldn't you say that's a good deck if it can consistently do that? And the answer is no. It is not a good deck because it fails to meet another criteria, which is have a plan B. This is an example of what I call a one-trick pony. Basically, I have to get Enduring Renewal or else the deck does not work. And if you want to know whether or not you have a one-trick pony, you can simply put it under the test. Ask yourself that if your opponent chose a card from your deck and removed all copies of that card by the same name from the game, would you still consistently win by turn 5? This is an example of that very fact, Memorcide. And this deck fails. It can consistently win on turn 4. It can kill a player on turn 3, but it is not adaptable. If someone gets rid of Enduring Renewal, it rolls over and it dies. And so yeah, it's not a good deck. The alternative to that is have a sideboard. A sideboard is a 15-card edition that you use to kind of shore up weaknesses in your deck, that you can draw problem areas of deck. If your creature deck is weak against control, then you have a card to address that. It's just this little stack of cards off to the side that says, yeah, you know what, I need that card to deal with it. Or, you know what, I'm having some problems dealing with his artifact that continually locks me down. I'm going to need to put, if I put some cards up from my sideboard, I can destroy those key cards and better adapt my deck to winning. So a sideboard is actually a huge part of what can make a deck good. It can address problem areas that you have, and also it can search for specific nerfing cards that is going to totally tear down your opponent. You can prey upon the weaknesses of your opponent's deck. There's a couple things other that can make a good deck, which is, really making the most of your cards. This is a land that will tap for 2 land, so 2 different colors of mana, so it's color fixing. It can become a creature and attack. You really get to make the most out of it. This card is very indicative of theme, but it'll make all of your cards that run in that theme. This is the new theme from the Mirrodin set, Infect. It'll make all of those cards better. And that's something called synergy. That all of your cards in your decks work together. And that comes to the end of all the notes that I have on how to build a good deck. But I wanted to put this out there before I go into covering the Muruganda Petroglyph deck construction, because it's important to know that even though I have 17 years of experience and I've built all of these decks, you should never really use my decks as a perfect example of a good deck, because I've never ever built one. All of my decks are there to do something. This one's to take advantage of creatures with no abilities. That's what I built it for. I wanted to use up those cards, and that's why I built the deck. There's different player demographics that people talk about basically what a player is trying to do and how they want to win. And I tend to be a little bit Johnny Spike, or not Johnny Spike, but Johnny Timmy. Sorry, got the wrong demographic, and that's a different thing altogether, really. But I just wanted to let you know that before we get into deck construction, I have never built a good deck. I probably never will, because I only buy 1 box of every single pack. I don't buy singles. And also another big part of it is I play multiplayer, and the deck construction between multiplayer and single player is very different. So I'm going to let you go so that I don't run into more time, and thank you for watching.